Hello everyone, this is Nancy at Paper Moon Tarot, and I wanted to record a VR to a hashtag called hashtag Tarot Extremes. Tarot of the Extreme, I believe, is another hashtag, and I will put the link below for the person who started this tag, and it is about 7 questions about decks that are like wildly different ends of the spectrum, and therefore extreme in one end or the other in a certain category. And so the first category here is minimalist versus maximalist. And I had to look that up. I'm a writer, editor, so maximalist, I was like, is that a word? And yeah, it's a word, but minimalist refers to either a person or a work of art, because there was a minimalist art movement. Maximalist refers to a person who is extreme, but we'll just convert it here to relate to tarot decks, to things rather than people. So my minimalist deck is the Future Ancestor Tarot by Lexa Luna Studio, and it is very minimalist art. See the backs, and you can see that it kind of has suggestions of things that are upside down. I'm sorry. You know, Murphy's Law. If you can get it upside down, you will. 3 of Needles, Swords. 8 of Candles is Wands. But obviously very simple figures, simple art, lots of white space. I'm not even sure what virtue is, what that term is. Excuse me. 6 of Cups. Really sweet, simple art. Definitely minimalist. I believe that's the Page of Pentacles. I haven't used this in a little bit, so I'd have to study up again on what's what. But like the 7 of Swords, she's kind of whispering like gossip or something. Something a little not right going on there. 4 of Seeds, 4 of Pentacles. So this one is very simple. A few of the cards are darker. But when I think of a minimalist tarot, it's the artwork, because I very much use tarot decks and enjoy tarot decks for the artwork. And so if there's just a suggestion of the traditional meanings, that, you know, works for me. If it's really nice art, and I think this is just really a pretty simple deck. It's nicely done. 2 of Wands, Ace of Cups. There she is sitting in a cup. There's very little color in this deck, but this one has all red on it. It's basically monochromatic. So the Future Ancestor Tarot is definitely my minimalist deck. I have a few others that are more minimal, but this is a very sweet one. Okay, so over here, my maximalist deck is the Templar Tarot, and again, from the point of view of the artwork, it is very busy artwork, very interesting artwork. Some of the cards have an awful lot going on when you're trying to look at this King of, I believe, Wands. You know, the broken bottle, the book, the snake, you know, there is so much going on in each card. There's the Queen of Wands, and she's got the same stuff down here. Looks like an egg there. People holding up her chair. the flying wands over here. Everything but a black cat from what I can tell. The True Cross, I don't even, remember what that referred to. I think there's a lot of extra cards in this deck, and I suspect that was one of the extra ones. Yeah, I think I'm into the extra cards. I brought a handful of cards down, and I happened to grab the extras. But you get an idea of the artwork and how complex it is, both from the design, all the little details in the artwork, but also things going on that you can, the eye up there and so forth, all the things you can investigate. Again, my apologies for having grabbed the extra cards rather than the tarot cards, but there are 78 tarot cards and these extra cards. And so the Templar Tarot, I feel, is like a very busy deck. Now, sometimes that's useful, gives you a lot to look at and pull on, and different symbols throughout, but it's also busy. So it's maximalist art. Okay, so that was the first category, minimalist and maximalist. The next category is daytime and nighttime as our two extremes. So for daytime, I chose the Ember and Aura Tarot just because it is such a light, bright deck with pretty soft pastel colors and hell, even pink borders. So everything's soft and light and bright. And I think it's it's not my very favorite deck or anything, but it's for a light, bright, easy on the eye deck. Pretty. Has way too many anorexic women in it, but that's okay. And also in its way, kind of minimalist. It's pretty simple art. But yeah, as a daytime deck, I think this just screams daytime. I don't know if there's a dark card in the whole thing. Ten of Wands, pretty bright colors and so forth. So that's the Ember and Aura. And as I say, it's light, it's bright, it's sort of the Barbie doll of tarot decks. And pretty, it's a pretty deck. A little larger cards than usual. But definitely a daytime deck for me. Oh, and I have to show this one other card. It's probably my favorite card in the deck, the Strength card. Just adorable. Okay, so that is the Ember and Aura for the daytime deck. And the nighttime deck, I chose the Broken Mirror Tarot. It's just a very dark deck in terms of the background. It's a very, very pretty deck. These are the backs. But you get that nighttime feel in most of the cards. There are some that are sort of almost more twilight. But definitely not bright daylight decks. Even the Three of Cups, you feel like it's nighttime, the moon is up there. And then when you get to darker cards, it's extra dark. Pretty borders on these corner borders. It's the Broken Mirror Tarot. It looks like a mirror, that shape formed by the borders. Oh, more upside down. but definitely a nighttime deck. Not because it's dark, depressing, scary. You know, you could have gone that way for a nighttime deck, that it's, you know, a Halloween-y, scary type of gothic deck. But I just chose this more, again, for the art that feels like it's nighttime or twilight in just about every card. So that is the Broken Mirror Tarot for my nighttime deck. Okay, the next category is the best shuffle and the worst shuffle. And I don't know, this is a stretch for me. If you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm not a good shuffler. I do pretty much overhand shuffling. But if I had to pick a deck that's a challenge, even with the overhand shuffling, it's probably going to be the Dark Mansion Tarot. And there are others like it, but it was the first rose petal deck that I got. And it's just, it doesn't slip or slide much at all. So if you're really stuck with an overhand shuffle, kind of dragging these things to even do an overhand shuffle, it's a great deck. It's a wonderful deck. And since I'm not huge on shuffling, I can handle it being stickier because of the matte rose petal. But the Dark Mansion, excuse me, the Dark Mansion Tarot is fun and wonderful, and I love it. But yeah, if I had to pick one that doesn't shuffle well, doesn't move around well. Now, riffle shuffling, I assume, is the same problem. But again, I'm not a riffle shuffler, so I can't tell you that end of things. And shuffleability is not high on my list of priorities for decks. But since you asked, this is probably the one that occurs to me. Is just even picking up a card is like, bleh. You know, it's so soft. And, you know, I love the rose petal finish. It just, like I say, if you are focused on shuffling, then it's a little tricky to do. So that would be my least shuffleable deck. And oddly, for my most shuffleable deck, it's, you know, I have plenty that are more of a, like a Pagan Otherworlds, or, you know, linen, shinier stock that with a core that is lovely to maneuver. But I picked the Tarocco Soprafino because it is small. When you look at, let's see, let's grab Broken Mirror and show you a standard tarot size against it. You know, it's just a smaller card. So for me, shuffleability sometimes comes down to the size of the deck. And so for me, it's kind of a pleasure to do this because it's very confined, easy to maneuver cards. They are shinier. They're not super shiny, but they are not thick cards by any means. And the deck is lovely. I love the deck. I love the size. You know, if I'm looking for shuffleability, try to make this focus. This does not want to focus. There. Okay. It is a beautiful deck. It is, I think, a limited edition from El Scarabeo. Los Scarabeo, what in Spanish. Very sort of fine art antique deck. Not like your older Marseille that have simpler art. This has finer art. Soprafino, fine art. So it's a lovely deck if you want an antique style deck with pips. But for me, the shuffleability comes from the small size and the nice cardstock. But I will say that in general, I would probably, in terms of shuffleability, Well, one of the decks that I have the majors of, for example, is the Jean Noblet from Artisan Tarot, and again, a small size, but that linen-y, more plasticky cardstock, and that's lovely too. I only have the majors of that, so I don't have the whole deck, so didn't feel like that. But, you know, either of these would fit in the shuffleability, it's a hard word to say, category. Okay, confronting versus comforting. Well, these two came to my mind pretty quickly. And while you think about that, I'm just going to put some cards away so I don't have to do it all at the end. And I have space here to work. But confronting, I felt that the Hush Tarot is confronting. And it's confronting from a couple of angles. It's got very dramatic art. The art is quite often disturbing to my mind. I love the deck, but when you look at that bird making a nest in her dead head, in her ear, the Ace of Wands is about creativity, etc. So the bird's building something there. But there's a dead person in the picture. And here's another one, excuse me, with a bird and a dead person in the grass. There's the Hanged Man, who is not hanging, but is a weird, look at the face on that person or creature. This is the Queen of Cups. Now, how nurturing and sweet does she look? She's got maybe a dead bird on her head. Another skull. So I find the Hush Tarot to be beautiful, to be a very cool deck. Excuse me. But it's confronting because it has disturbing images, and also because you have to really work at figuring out what these mean in terms of a tarot deck. So it confronts you on the level of saying, you have to figure this out. You have to come up with a way that this works for you within the tarot system. And so it confronts you in that way. So that's the confronting one. The comforting one is the White Sage Tarot. I apologize, dry throat all of a sudden. Anyway, the White Sage. Most gentle images. I'm not getting it to focus. Beautiful. This is another deck I could do for shuffleability because it's that small size again, as you can see. Beautiful images, gentle, mainly animal deck, I think completely animal deck. One of my favorite fools of all time, right there. And even the Five of Cups, you know, it's kind of upsetting, but it's not. And Three of Cups. So it's a somewhat pippish deck. It's it's got a guide card for chakra. So these ribbons that run through have to relate to chakra, to different colors. There's our star. But I don't know how you could look at a card like the Queen of Cups. I mean, compare the Queen of Cups here. Let's find the Queen of Cups in here. She's going to be the last one. This is all I have to say. There's the Queen of Cups in the Hush Tarot, and there's the Queen of Cups in White Sage. So, depends on how confronted you want to be on a particular day. Okay, so that is confronting versus comforting. Now, the next one is everyday versus every so often. Well, probably my current favorite deck is Dream Visions. And there isn't a deck I pull out every day. Because what I like to do is kind of rotate the art and look at different decks every day. And, I don't, if I read for myself, I pull the deck that I feel like looking at that day, and I read from that deck. But the Dream Visions is just a really cool deck. To me, it's very intense art. Bright colors. To me, very clear meanings in this deck with very few symbols. But I just love this deck. It's gorgeous. Judgment, you see the big trumpet coming down and the people. And here you go. We just looked at a couple of Queen of Cups. Well, here's another Queen of Cups. Focus. There we go. Very different style, but I love it. I love all the colors and so on. So that's, kind of my favorite right now. So it's here. It's always here for me to grab. My every so often, this is not a deck that's every so often, but it sort of represents the fact that I don't pull Marseille style decks all the time. But, I do pull them. It's just they're not usually my standby decks. And this is the Tarot of Musterberg. And it's going to focus. I just know it. Okay, there we go. It's a beautiful little Marseille style deck. Kind of a sense of whimsy to it. Tarot de Ozarks is another one that I pull out. I actually pull that out more than this, so saying every so often, this is probably more of an every so often deck. Just because most of my decks are RWS, but I actually have quite a few that are more Marseille style. But if you said every day, the one I pull, it probably would be an RWS at this point. But I get more and more into Marseille. And this is a lovely little Marseille deck. That I pull now and then and say, I want to see that pretty little deck again. I feel like looking at that one. So, any Marseille Tarot, Tarot Musterberg is the one I grabbed for you to look at. Okay, the next one is overrated versus underrated. Well, to my mind, this one, you know what it is. The Wild Unknown. I appreciate that it came out and sort of opened some doors for looking at tarot decks differently. That it kind of filled a niche for opening up indie publishers, independently published decks. I think I came along after it had been out for a couple of years, and what I feel is overrated is that it was everywhere. It's still a lot of places, but when I first discovered it, It was in every bookstore, every gift shop, places that had no tarot decks at all had this deck. Everyone had it, everyone was showing it, and so what I'm saying is not that the deck is that bad. It doesn't happen to be my particular favorite art style, but that the world overrated it. The world made it seem like it was the best deck ever, and I'm like, it's a nice little deck. But this art is not the best art I've seen in tarot decks. No offense to the creator, that's just in my opinion. And so you put that big hype against what this artwork is, and it just didn't make sense to me. So it's always felt overrated to me. And again, it does not mean it's not a perfectly nice deck. I know lots of people swear by it, love it. It just doesn't live up to what was put on it when it came out. But again, I think the artist created a nice little deck that opened a lot of doors for people, and I think that's great. And if I came across it now and had never heard of it before, I'd probably say this is a cool little deck. So that to me is the overrated deck, the Wild Unknown. An underrated deck, and there's several, but a deck I found early on in looking at decks that I really loved was the Zillich Tarot. It's in a tin, I believe it's US Games, and it is a Thoth-based deck. There's the backs. I just love the artwork on this. It has such pretty art. And again, a good size for my hands. But, oh, there I go, knocking the camera. It is just a very cool deck. And I pretty much never hear about it. You know, I've looked for this artist and I'm like, I would like one of her prints on my wall. I love that Queen of Swords in the snow, the ice. But again, I just never see this. Now, I am not any kind of expert in tarot in general, but in Thoth particularly. But obviously this is Dominion for the Two of Wands, so it's Thoth-based interpretations. But I just, you know, I look at that artwork for the Knight of Wands and I'm like, that is so gorgeous. Never hear about this deck. And it's a little tarot in a tin from US Games, so it's not expensive. If you want pretty images, pretty artwork, and that's where I look at something like this and I look at the Wild Unknown and I think, I don't think the Wild Unknown's art is better than that. I think this is real art. And again, I get decks to a great extent to appreciate the art in them. Look at that strength card. I love that. So anyway, the Zillich Tarot is the underrated deck to my mind. Okay, one more category, light versus shadow. Light work, shadow work decks. And where did I put them? Oh, here. Okay. Let's start with light. I love the Magic Tarot. It is light in that it's cute and fun. And if you had someone with a serious problem that you wanted to lighten up, you might use this. You know, if you just want to have fun with tarot. It's a Spanish deck. You know, I can take light to mean fun, light, bright colors. You could probably find one where the meanings are a little easier going, but I don't think there's a really dark card in here. Six of Pentacles, this girl is just, you know, playing. She's a kid. Seven of Pentacles is some kind of dragon. And there's the Ten of Wands, which seems to have a bunch of cups in the air. I guess they're wands. They're long club type things. But even the Ten of Wands, there's a happiness in the umbrella that's looking down on her saying, oh, come on, you made it. Smile. Look at the Hermit. Love that Hermit. So the Magic Tarot by Amaya Arzola. It's a Fournier deck. That is just a happy, light deck. And finally, I don't know, for me, a shadow work deck would be this little sucker. Somnia Tarot by Nicholas Bruno. I've said in another video, it's like an Ingmar Bergman movie in a box. The artist, I believe, was exploring his battle with insomnia. So hence the Somnia, sleep. Somnia meaning sleep tarot. If you want shadow, it's like you can read into that whatever dark or deep things you want to. There's our Lovers. Chariot. It's a very cool deck, but it is dark. She's lifting the trap like a bear trap to capture something. So the Somnia Tarot, I think, would be my shadow work deck. I don't do a lot of shadow work, but I think it's perfect for it. So those are my extreme decks. Let me know if you agree with any of these, if you have other ideas, or if you've done your own version of this. And there's my shell for you to look at, my fossilized shell. So thanks for coming by, guys. Take care. Bye.